Hello,
Hello.
I'm Maxie,
Hello, I'm Carolyn.
and this is Mutable Immutables, the show where we quibble queerly.
We quibble queerly and then we exchange pleasantries. How's it going,
Yes,
Max?
it's going great. It's going so good. I have been for the last day or two, or honestly for the last month, I've been just embellishing my apartment with I've been shopping on Amazon way too much, but I've gotten so many things to just tie everything together, and it looks so great. I love it. Also, as a warning to our listeners, I am currently dog sitting. I do have a dog, and my dog is very quiet. The dog that I am dog sitting is adorable, but he has big feelings, and he likes to talk about them. So that will probably be heard. Anyway, how are you?
Oh, I am Peachy Keen Jelly Bean. Um, Nothing new. Same old, but yeah, all good.
Work. Cool. Well, what are we talking about this week?
Okay, you know how last week I said that I was gonna be better about taking notes in advance and like I was gonna say it on the pod and hold myself accountable? Didn't do
Hmm.
that. Um my notes are still just like jotted down nouns and occasionally a date.
Okay.
However, I've been reading a lot and watching a lot of videos and learning a lot about of interesting facts about the turn of the century and like leading up to World War I. And this time I'm actually gonna talk about the war. I swear to God, I'm actually gonna do it. Um and like it's kind of depressing. Where I'm going with this is like we didn't have a gay rights movement until like the 50s because we didn't like
Hmm.
super need one until the 50s because like
Right.
for a while it was live and let live and like it's just a thing everybody
Well, but then
especially in
1945.
yeah or like even like the first red scare which we're also going to talk about.
Well, I meant the
Oh my
Bible
god.
thing.
Oh, so I thought you meant World War II ending. Oh my god.
No, the Bible thing.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm with you. Sorry. Um, okay, but yeah, I'm gonna spit out some fun facts and see where we go from there.
Okay, work. I'm here for the ride.
um, and okay, we are going. Okay, so late 1800s, Victorian era, Gilded Age, robber barons, right? So,
Industrialization.
well, yeah, so the industrialization kind of already happened, but like now we are reaping the benefits of it. Well, we I mean, the wealthy and like middle class of America was kind of
Right.
reaping the benefits of it. Um, Aestheticism was the thing, like making like beautiful art for art's sake and beautiful architecture and like no moral meaning or anything, like just art to be beautiful.
It's like a
And
mini
like,
Renaissance.
I guess, yeah. And like Victorians were super like into sex and like it was where we first get like the beginnings of pornography. So like
Love it.
things are just like going great. Queen Victoria dies in 1901. Um, but like the Gilded Age still sort of continues on. Um, in the midst of this, there's mumblings of workers' rights movements in like the beginnings of uh labor unions in America because um these buildings are being built by somebody and it's not the people who are going to own the buildings. Um
Correct.
so workers' rights becoming important in the consciousness because people are being exploited. And because there's like waves and waves of immigrants around the turn of the century, just like a fuck ton of immigration to America, there's like a ton of workers to be exploited for these gains. And there's these rubber barons who are just like super rich. There were four main ones. It was like oil, the railroads, the banks, and fucking something else. I don't know. So in New York specifically, all of these people who are immigrating are kind of forming these little enclaves because obviously, if you come to a new country, you're going to go find the people who like speak your language and are making the same food you make and that kind of
Mhm.
thing. Um, so you have the really not even segregated, just like strictly ethnically divided neighborhoods. That's a, you,
Ethnically homogenous?
sure, yeah, yeah. Like nobody
Work.
was no redlining or anything. It was just
Right.
happening.
Mhm.
Um, so yes, all these workers being exploited, blah blah blah. We start to see like folk songs coming out about like union scabs and like the International Workers of the World was this um like union that formed in Chicago, and their whole it's very like socialist leaning. And if you've ever heard the like one big union, that's their whole thing. So put a pin in the IWW for a second,
Okay.
and then you also get the AFL, which is the American
American Football
Federation.
League.
That's it. American Federation for Labor or something, and uh, CIO. I cannot for the life of me remember what that stands for. It doesn't matter. Anyway, these different rights organizations, because people start to realize like, hey, we're making the same as like Europeans make for their work, but also we have no protections, no workman's compensation, we get paid less, we work more, like there's no safety equipment. And so that's when you know we get the AFL and the CIO, who eventually merged to become the AFL CIO. Also,
I
we're
believe
go ahead, sorry.
I was just gonna say, I believe this also tying in with a couple of our last episodes. I think this is also when unionization in the Broadway world kind of started to take shape in the form of equity, actors' equity.
Yes, and I have that date somewhere in my notes, but
Okay,
like I
cool.
said, not conveniently. Um, anyway, okay, so there's gonna be songs that are listening to go along with this one. So you can listen to Casey Jones, The Union Scab by Pete Seeger.
We apologize for this interruption, brought to you by dog noises.
Okay, so the song Casey Jones, The Union Scab by Pete Seeger. You can listen to that song. It's very funny. Casey Jones, so the song was originally written not by Pete Seeger in 1911. It was a parody of this other. You remember we talked about burlesque and parodies kind of a thing. Now, it was a parody of the song called like Casey Jones the Brave Conductor or some shit like that. But instead, they made it about a Union scab named Casey Jones, and he goes up to heaven, and like everybody in heaven is on strike, and so he scabs on the angels in heaven, and just like he did to workers on the SB line. Um, so yeah, uh,
Required listening number one. Got it.
cool. Yeah. Um, so different. So immigrants from different countries are immigrating for different reasons. Jewish people are immigrating to escape like Tsarist Russia and like the anti-Semitism there. So they're bringing like their entire families. However, like a lot of and like the Irish people bringing their whole families, like
Hmm.
trying to get away. Um, but like Italian people, or maybe German immigrants are planning to like return at some point, and they're just here for temporary seasonal work. Um, and so it's just the men. Like it's just the man comes over and works for a couple years or a couple months or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, so and we've talked about in previous episodes about how all these workers lived in tenement housing so that you
Yep.
could be close to where you were working, but you had like no privacy and cramped living conditions. And so obviously people who are without their wives are going to have sex, because it's not gay sex isn't bad if you're not being fucked, you're doing the fucking. We've talked about this
Right. It
before.
doesn't count.
Yeah. Um, Also, interestingly, fairies, which is the term for the people being fucked, it was like a third gender, and it's it's not like they weren't cross dressing, because cross dressing had been illegal since like the middle of the 1800s, and
Mm,
like you have to have on 3 articles of clothing that
right.
go with your birth sex or whatever. But they would do certain things that made them stand out as a fairy. So like in the ports in New York City, obviously there's a ton of work to be done around the waterfront with all the factories and
Mhm.
stuff. So there's a ton of workers working down there, and so where there's like workers, there's going to be sex workers. So there's female sex workers, prostitutes, whatever you want to call them, but I've also seen them called like tough women, which is very funny to me. Um, but you also had fairies. So fairies were like not cross dressers, but they were like taking the role of a woman. So like sexuality had it like it was a gender thing. It was not a sexuality thing. Like if you were a fairy, if you were a man getting fucked by another man, you were like it was because you wanted to be a woman. It wasn't because you were attracted to the other man. Does that make sense?
Yes, and actually, this I won't get on the soapbox tangent now, but like I have some gendered philosophy that is very reminiscent of that. So like yes, I'm there.
Okay. Um so yeah. And the people who are fucking the person, like the way they're thinking about it is like, well, the pure women are the women that I'm going to marry, but I
Hmm.
just need to get off right now. I'm not going to fuck them because they're pure until marriage. I'm going to fuck
The beginning of
whores.
hookup culture.
Well, no, not they're still paying for it usually, in
Well,
one way or another. So you're either getting off with like a woman, but if there's no woman available, or if it's your preference, you might just pick up a fairy, and a fairy would have like tweezed eyebrows and like
hmm.
powdered face with rouge on their neck, or they would wear a brightly colored bow tie because like colors were very conservative at that time. You would wear like a brightly colored bow tie. Like they would stand out in a way that would be very obvious if you knew what you were looking for.
Hmm.
Um so okay, this is coming from George Chauncey, Gay New York is the source for a lot of this. So he says that like the main like cultural groups who were engaging with the sort of thing were Italian men, Irish men, and African American men. This is like sort of the beginning of the Migration, when a lot of um, African American people moved from the South to escape Jim Crow into the Northeast. And
Hmm.
then we also talked about that in terms of that's where we get like the Harlem Renaissance, is a lot of them located in Harlem, and a lot of Italian people in East Harlem. So anyway, so Italian men specifically had the Catholic Church telling them how bad it was to have premarital sex with a woman, to the point where premarital sex, there's no marital, so it's just sex with a man, so
Right.
it's fine. It was also at this point thought that venereal diseases, it wasn't from sex, it was from women. So if you didn't have sex
Hmm.
with women, you were fine. Also, um, this is so vulgar. Oh my god. Oh, you didn't suck dick back. Women did not. It was vulgar. Like you could not get even female sex workers to do it a lot of times, and so like
Really?
the only that it's not that people didn't do it, but like it like proper women did not do it. It was not like a normal sexual thing by
Oh,
any means. Like people have done everything for so long. I just
forever.
talked
Yeah.
about how like pornography was invented. So were like vibrators in the Victorian era. Like people did stuff, but like it was not, I feel like now like we're kind of cool with oral sex, especially maritally, but back then it was like taboo, like do not do it. But if you were having a man suck your dick, you weren't like disrespecting a woman. Um, that's sort of a joke, but um, so yeah, there was a lot of like venereal disease propaganda. Well, actually, we'll go back to that when we talk about the war. I promise I'm getting there. What else? Um, when you're not working or you're not at home because you live in crowded tenement housing and your neighbors know everything about you, you hang out in saloons. And oftentimes, we did talk about how saloons, the performer is incentivized and kind of makes commission based on how many drinks they buy or drinks they sell.
We apologize for this interruption, brought to you by dog noises.
Okay, so you would hang out in saloons. So the performers are trying to sell drinks, so they're doing things that are like more scandalous. They're stripping, or maybe it would be somebody. A lot of times, the bars would bring in somebody cross-dressing, even though it was illegal. You would have like there was this one person named Loop the Loop. Loop the Loop was her like street name, I guess. She was a famous like sex worker, and um she would she was like a good example because she would like wear dresses and like have long hair and stuff, but didn't like shave her legs, like wasn't trying to like pass for a woman necessarily, like wasn't trying to pass basically, but was wearing women's clothing. So they would have performers like that, kind of like freak showish things, but also like sexy like burlesque and drag things. But also like they would have working women and by default working fairies at the bar as well, and they would have like back rooms, so people would like come see their fairy regularly and like have this relationship, and these people would be called like husbands, I think. um and yeah, there's also, so we're starting to get into female like female impersonation, basically like drag as we know it right now. Because obviously a lot of times you don't, we talked about like there's the straight world and the gay world, so you like maybe you like live uptown, you get off work, and now you come to the gay world and you don't want it to get around to everybody, and so you use your fake name. um so people have just like a fake male name, but also like there were like drag queens basically. And so
So like the boys are
um
doing a little bit of boy drag too. Not that they're like putting on any
yeah, but just
clothes or
like faking
makeup,
a
but it's like,
persona.
yeah.
Yeah, they
Okay.
have like their alter ego kind of.
Hell yeah.
um and like I feel like I've maybe been not great at describing the public sentiment. For one thing, we're only talking about like New York City, we're not talking about
Hmm.
Omaha, Nebraska.
Right.
Also, like, people tolerated gay behavior. It does not mean they like respected gay people as their
Yeah.
equals. Like the perversion, quote unquote, was like a something you would go see. It was a like a spectacle. It was, but
Yeah, no, there was
they were
no,
not people.
it was not equity. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I don't know. I just feel like I need to point that out at some point. Um, so see, I keep losing my train of thought like this. I need to stop. I need to focus. Focus. You know what? Let's talk about the war.
Okay.
So here we go. Europe goes to war. We're not going to get into the specifics because I don't remember them. But essentially, it's Germany against everybody right now. Um, France, Germany tries to invade France, and eventually, British have to send reinforcements because they're allied with France. That was like the most simple way I can like say it right now, but that's what you need to know.
Well, you
So
remember
this
more
is
than I
kind of,
do.
yeah, no. This is kind of stirring up some nostalgia for the motherland for all these immigrants who are living in America now. So like German Americans are kind of like, oh, like Germany, like those are my guys, go. um um
That's fam.
um and the war starts in 1914. Woodrow Wilson is the president, and I didn't know this, but his wife apparently died like 2 days after war was declared. So
Oh,
he's for
really?
a while, yeah. So he's for a while just like, we're not getting into the war. We were going to remain neutral the whole time. Like that's what it was. That's like was going to be our thing. But then he also recognized that we have like so many European immigrants who are like either their homeland is invading somebody or somebody is invading their homeland. Like there's tensions. He's aware that how like close conditions these people live, and a government's concerned that like um if people connect too much to their like ethnic heritage, they're going to turn on each other based on what's happening in Europe. So they start to push this like all American thing. So like you have to denounce your homeland, like you're an American now, you're not a German. Um especially Germans obviously. It got to the point where they were like renaming DeKalb Street, renaming Deutsche Bank, to less German sounding things. The US government even like sent people letters saying like you need to not be Polish. You're an American. You need to not be German. You're an American. You need to not be Serbian, you know? Um
Just turn it off.
exactly. So when we talked about Times Square, I think we talked a little bit about like the birth of advertising and like bright lights and like um this was a perfect opportunity for propaganda to become huge. So um Woodrow Wilson starts to employ, and of course I never remember the important people's names, but this like political artist, I guess, to start Creel. I think last name Creel. Anyway, um like using all these advertising techniques but for propaganda instead, and all of it's like well, hold that thought. The draft. First the draft. So America was not going to get into the war, but okay, yes. Okay, so we were super rich at the time. We were super rich because we were selling arms and all this shit to England and France. Okay? Right. So the Germans realized that like the only way that they can hold off the British and the French is that if they cut off their supply from the United States. So Germany starts bombing American ships. And obviously now America's like, well fuck, now we have to join the war. So in 1917, there was a draft established. And there's different like categories, but if you were an unmarried man between the ages of 21 to I think 40 it was at first, like you are going, like you have basically no choice. And then there's different like considerations for if you're married or if you have a dependent, and then obviously if you have like some kind of physical ailment and stuff. But like pretty much you're getting drafted, and then like a couple years later it became everybody 18 to 45. Basically the only way you could get out of it was being a conscientious objector, but you had to like prove to the government that you were like a registered Quaker or something. Like you had to have like a legitimate religious, basically religious reason. Um so everybody goes to war, literally everybody. Um this is obviously like unpopular at first, and so the government has to kind of like really turn up the patriotism. So now we're back to the advertising, the propaganda, and you're telling you like send your sons off to war. Like it's not on. It's not so part of it's like do your part for the war effort, buy war bonds, like use less meat, less wheat, but also part of it's like look at this caricature of a German soldier dragging an innocent little girl into hell or something, like anti-German propaganda, that sort of thing, but using it to get people to enlist. And so this is where we get the Uncle Sam I want you for the US Army. Like that shit was super prevalent, especially because like kind of our only, we didn't really have talkies yet, so our only media was like newspapers and like physical print. um and so the propaganda was just raging everywhere. And basically the sentiment was if you're not fighting or contributing to the war effort, You are not an American. This was worsened with the Bolshevik Revolution, which happened in 1917. Yeah, 1917. So this is okay. This happened like a month before we. So the Bolshevik Revolution happened, and then we joined the war a month later. Bolshevik Revolution in Russia overthrew the Tsarist government, and um, it was now a socialist government. Socialism in America had been super fucking popular around the turn of the century, and like anarchism, and that's where we get like the International Workers of the World. Um, but now that the Bolsheviks overthrew Russia, America's like, oh fuck, it's a Red Scare now. So this is the first Red Scare, not McCarthyism yet, but this is the first one. And now is the time when they're like, if you are a defector, like a draft dodger, if you're in the IWW, like you are not American, you are going to jail. Like cops were violent with them. Like you are not allowed to be communist, socialist, anarchist. How and then also later like gay. um, so Red Scare. Now we're in the war, and you're like made to feel bad if you're not 100% for like millions, thousands of men dying for no reason. Because the thing about World War I is that it was like a stalemate for the longest time, especially on the Western Front between France and Germany, which means that it was just a race of like who has the most men available to be killed, basically, because no side had like better technology or anything. Like it was like kill people and let like 18-year-olds die until one side surrenders. So finally, in 1918, Germany surrenders. World War I is over. Everybody comes back home, and uh, now the jobs have been uh, like the millions of like wartime jobs that have been created in factories and stuff, A, are no longer needed. B, now we have women in the workforce doing a lot of these jobs. So there's a fuck ton of competition, like the competition for jobs. The labor rights movement has been like flattened by World War I. Not to mention now they're starting to be seen as like socialists for not being the individualistic capitalist, entrepreneur thing. Um, and white supremacy is at its fucking peak. 1919 was known as like the Red Summer just because of how many like race riots there were and just how much bloodshed and how horrible it was. Um, Black people were drafted for the army, which is insane to me. For one thing, I mean, obviously that's not like a hot take. But for one thing, we're like still in Jim Crow time, and then your government's telling you you have to go fight for the United Kingdom and France, like for America, but like that has nothing to do with you, even though we haven't done anything to make you feel like a citizen of any sort. So there was like protests about this, and there was like this one black church in Harlem had like a silent protest about like that that sentiment, basically like how are you going to send me to war for you when I don't even have rights here. um and there was even racism in the army. Like for one thing, black people could only serve in the army or the the navy doing menial tasks, but they couldn't be marines. And like they were doing a lot of like construction, like menial labor, that kind of thing. Eventually France is like desperate for soldiers, and America doesn't want to send our like quote good soldiers, and so we sent our this regiment called the Harlem Hellfighters over to France, and they become like the most iconic like uh regiment of the military. They like never lose any enemy uh uh prisoners. They like never lose any ground to the Germans. Like, and then they come back and
No respect.
that's nothing. just
Hmm.
nothing. Um, which is the case for,
A
all
lot of,
veterans today,
yeah.
but like specifically like black people, obviously. Um, so that also like with the white people thinking like we can't get jobs and it's your fault because uh, it has to be somebody's fault.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, Red Summer. Um, after the war, we are like social tensions are rough. But then we get into the 20s, which is for one thing, America passed laws or like changed the laws around. I don't know if there were visas at the time, but like they put the cap on like short-term workers immigrating to America. So, um a lot less of the like young men living together thing. Um but we're also in the this is we're also in the midst of like the bachelor culture, which
Hmm.
I think we kind of talked about last time,
Yeah.
where like your manliness has nothing to do with like women or pursuit of women. It has everything to do with your virility in
Hmm.
comparison to other men. And so um like like pool rooms, saloons, like sportsmen, like competing in physical tasks was like a way to prove your manliness, but also like fucking a fairy was because
Just
um
someone else to top.
yeah. Well, like fucking a woman was too because it's like, I dominated her, whatever. But then
Right.
it's like the exact same thing for a fairy. It's like I dominated a fairy. It's like the same compartment
Hmm.
in the brain for them. Um and it has nothing to do with like it just has everything to do with like you proving yourself to other men.
Yeah.
Um so especially in the war when you're relying on a million other men because it's life and death, or you're a sailor on a ship for months and months with the same group of people, and it's a system where like you may either be able to offer protection to somebody or you need protection from somebody, and you can do these little marriages. Um, it's like the same thing that happens in prisons, kind of,
Oh,
where you have these little
really?
marriages, and it's like mutually beneficial. But that's why sailors have such a gay reputation, is because they would do that shit.
Hmm.
Um,
I never knew that.
yeah. So, um, so men are just like all about men, and it's not gay because they're not the fairies. They're considering themselves the term is like normal.
It's
Um,
not gay if your door is closed.
yeah, exactly. Hold on. Let me find where am I gonna pick up? Yes. Okay. Roaring 20s depression.
Yes.
Let me think. I lost my train of thought. Where was I going? Oh, yeah. And the whole thing was like it was a rejection of like the bachelor thing. It's a rejection of like male domesticity, and it's like all
Mm.
for male solidarity. So that like just like perfectly lends itself into World War I, and then later it like became an official thing in World War II with like the buddy system. So like male camaraderie, like it's not gay because it's all about your gender expression. If you're not being fucked, you're fine.
Mm.
Um, so fuck. I thought I was gonna get somewhere. You know what? Okay, this is what I'm gonna end with.
Okay.
So we get back into the 20s and we think it's going to be another Gilded Age and like all sorts of fun things. Um
Mm-hmm.
and we're like more globalized now, and like we have jazz now and everybody's happy, and then the stock market crashes and we're in a depression, and then we're in another world war, and then the government keeps on trying to uh, uh, quell any uprisings or any socialist sentiment. And so, and the second Red Scare comes around, and that's when it eventually becomes illegal to be a gay government official or whatever. But this is the depression and like the draft for World War II, I was like specifically when things started to turn and like the family unit become like the most important thing, like the
Hmm.
male, female, and 2.5 children. But
The
this
nuclear.
is yeah. But I think that like the draft and then like the unrest that came after it is kind of like it's kind of like the obvious first step to me of how it became illegal to be gay. I don't think I have any other coherent thoughts right now. So I think we're going to stop there. I
Well,
was doing so well
thank
for
you
a
for
minute
that.
there.
No, you were. And that's really interesting. I had not ever thought about the marriages at sea or anything like that. Like I knew, gay things happen in the army and overseas and on the
Yeah.
water, but I didn't think about like partnerships and allyships and stuff like that. That's interesting.
Yeah. And like the buddy system was like an actual thing in World War II. Like you were told to have a buddy that you protected like life or death.
Hmm.
What the fuck do you think that's going to lead to?
Y'all gonna fuck.
Yeah. So, okay, any other thoughts?
No, just it's interesting that I don't know, so much homosexuality permeates something so like quote unquote typically masculine because I feel like I mean, women fight in wars and stuff too, but like war as a concept and the way it's portrayed is usually just like so heavily masculine. And I know that at this time it wasn't an infringement on your own masculinity to be having sex with other guys, even though it was to be like receiving. But
Yeah.
it's just interesting.
Yeah. Um
Delusion.
delusion. You convince yourself. Um but yeah, New
Well,
York
cool.
City eventually kind of becomes a scapegoat because it's so like the Bowery and everything is like so known for like debauchery and everything, and so you start getting the crackdown. People are less interested in quote slumming and more interested in um locking those perverts away. uh, so we'll get
Well,
to that.
cool.
That was a lot. Okay.
Well,
How
yeah,
long was how long
you did
okay.
good.
It doesn't matter. Okay. Um what's it called? What's our segment?
So what are you into
Oh my god.
for the
Yeah.
last,
Okay.
I don't know, 3 weeks?
What are you into? That's right. Okay. I so my friend came to visit me at this point like 2 weeks ago. Um and we watched Modern Family together, which I had never watched before, but then I binged a lot of it. And like the I'm still like watching it. I don't really care that much anymore, but like the first couple seasons, nobody told me that the first couple seasons were so good, and I was like laughing and crying in the same episodes. Also, like a
Yeah,
sitcom
I've
made
seen
me
good
cry.
moments
Like
from that show.
yeah, but like it made me cry like three different times in like the first couple seasons, and I was like, why is what?
Hmm.
Like I'm not even attached to these characters yet. What's happening? Um, so yeah, that's what I've been into. But it's yeah. What else? Oh my gosh, my plants. Okay, so some of my seeds have died slash potentially probably been murdered by my cat. Um,
Rest in peace.
yeah, but I went to the nursery and I bought some starts. So those are doing well, and hopefully that works. And I have tried for the past like 3 years to do plants from seeds, and I don't know what it is. I just cannot. Even if I get them to like a good plant, like they just don't survive. I don't know what I do wrong. So I bought some starts and we'll see how they
Seeds
go.
are hard.
What are, I know. What are you into?
Um, I am into Um, let's see, I have a couple things. Okay, so last weekend I had a cold, and so I was in bed for most of the weekend. And so I was just like fading in and out of consciousness, but I was also like trying to find some TV shows to binge. I found one called Invisible City. It's this like Brazilian fantasy supernatural type show that involves like cultural lore, which I thought was really interesting. So that one's good. It's on Netflix. You'll check it out. Also, while I was sick, I I don't know if this is the best or the worst way to watch this film, but on the first night when I had a fever that got up to my thermometer said 104, but I feel like that's a little dramatic. I think it was just like 102, and it was
Oh my
102 for
god.
a little bit. But I watched Scream for the first time
Ah!
because I
Love
felt
Scream.
inspired by you. It was so fucking
Yes.
good. It was
Isn't
like the
it great?
perfect mix of like self-referential camp, but
Yeah.
also like an actually interesting movie to watch.
Yeah.
And then Drew Barrymore getting murdered like immediately. It's like this is so funny. But then also
Ah.
Skeet Ulrich and Matthew Lillard. Oh my god.
Ugh.
And Skeet Ulrich is
Hot.
so hot. Yeah.
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 Oh my god.
Oh,
Love
and then
Scream.
Courtney Cox. I love her character.
Mm-hmm.
I was
Yeah,
like, I don't
she's
know if I'm
funny.
gonna love her at first, but yeah, I don't know. So it was a very good film. I'm gonna have to watch the rest of them. So I'm looking forward to that. I also didn't know that Neve Campbell is in all of them, including the one that came out last year. Um,
I don't know who that
so
is.
Neve Campbell, she was
Yeah.
the like main girl.
Oh, okay. I
What's
thought
her
that
name?
was a
I don't remember
movie.
her name, but I know that's Neve Campbell. Anyway, um, and then so at I've been like revamping my apartment and stuff. So one of the other things that I'm into are these like color changing LED lights. I have a couple different forms of them. I've got these backlights that plug into my TV and they can like reflect the images that are on the screen kind of, or they can just like do their own thing. I got this fancy light bulb that also just you can do different effects and stuff with it or change all the colors. Um, and I haven't set them up yet, but I just got a set of strip lights today that I'm going to put under my kitchen counter. Um, it's very vibey. I'm going for spaceship jungle between all my lights and my plants, and I'm getting there. It's amazing. Speaking of plants, another one of my victories is my plant shelf. It showed up this morning. I got it put together. It's beside the window now. She's looking so cute. I love her.
Yay.
Um, a band that I have been into. I was actually supposed to go see them on the day that I got like sick, and so I had to cancel. I couldn't go. But they're really good. They're called Yam House. That's YAM and then HAUS. I don't know what their genre is, but they just I don't know. Their music is really really good. Y'all should look them up, check them out. And then lastly, finally, I am into my little Pax pen.
Oh,
It's my little uh weed vape thing. I love her. She's so cute. She's so easy. I don't know why it's taken me until now to do it this way. I don't know why I was fucking with my dry herb vape, which I still do love. If y'all are people who like if you consume marijuana in a legal state or sorry, cannabis in a legal state, um the G Pen Dash is great if you prefer like flower, but if you don't want to do like a whole pipe. Um but this little pen has me good. She's so cute. Anyway, so that's
nice.
what I'm into.
You
What are
know what I
your
just realized?
victories?
Well, hold on.
What?
Do you know what I just realized? Is that I did not mention not one more song.
Oh, yeah, no. You told me before we even started, you were like, I have music for this episode.
Oh my god. And I did. I also meant to mention like the Union songs from like the Almanac Singers of like which side are you on? Like you'll either like you'll either be a will you be a lousy scab or will you be a man? Diss tracks. And then I was also going to mention Love Me I'm a Liberal by Phil Oakes, which I still might mention next episode because we'll talk more about like the 40s. Um
Hmm.
but it's like leftist song basically. Um and it's one of my favorite songs of all time. I think it's so good. It's like I cried when they shot Medgar Evers, tears ran down my spine, and I cried when they shot Mr. Kennedy as though I had lost a father of mine. But Malcolm X had it coming. He got what he asked for this time. Love me, I'm a
Mm.
liberal. And the whole thing is about like the liberals are like, oh my gosh, we love each other until it comes to actually sacrificing literally anything. So that's a great song for labor rights, and then it was later redone by Jello Biafra of the Dead Kennedys. That was like I oh shoot. Yeah, it was I cried when they shot John Lennon, tears ran down my spine, and I cried when I saw JFK as though I lost a father of mine, but Malcolm X and Ice-T had it coming. They got what I asked for this time. So it was it was like just um later things that were happening. It's
So
not
just
really relevant.
updated.
Yeah, just an updated version. Not really relevant. I just think it's funny. I was also going to mention the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory disaster, which happened in
Oh
Manhattan in
yeah.
1905. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
which is like this is why I kept trying to figure out what started the
The
like
fire.
the IWW
We didn't
and the
start the fire.
AFL-CIO. Thank you. Um, there's a line about the AFL-CIO board in "Love Me, I'm Liberal." Um, but yeah, this Triangle Shirtwaist Factory disaster happened when like lots of people were there was a fire and there was like no safety precautions and they were like
Mm-hmm.
locked into this um, building. Well, something similar happened in North Carolina in 1991. In Hamlet, North Carolina, and there's a Jello Biafra song about that. It's called Hamlet Chicken Plant Disaster, I think. He did it with Mojo Nixon, who is from Chapel Hill. Um,
Hmm.
and the other Dead Kennedy song I was going to mention was When You Get Drafted, because it had to do with the draft. You see what I did there? Call the army, call the navy, stocked with kids from slums. If you can't afford a slick attorney, we might make you a spy. Um, so yeah. I forgot to mention my songs, but those were my songs I was going to mention.
I love art. um, cool. So, what about little victories? Do you have any of those?
Well, I got a raise, which is nice.
Work.
My main victory though is I took Dorothy to the vet, and
Yeah.
she was a star. They loved her. They could not stop gassing her up. They were like, "Oh, she's so clean. She's so quiet. She's so
Yeah.
nice. Dorothy, you're so sweet."
Perfect girl.
Dorothy, she was just being the goodest girl. I was like, "Oh my god, that's my little baby. That's my baby is a perfect angel. How did I even raise something so beautiful?" So
That's
yeah.
how Bruno usually is. He's very popular.
Yeah. What are
Yeah.
your victories? Like this is the problem is I keep wanting to call it a fucking hooray, which is what they call it on My Favorite Murder.
Oh.
So what's your hooray little victory?
Um, aside from like redoing my whole apartment, or not redoing, but decorating all of that, which I think is actually more of like a major victory. My little victory is that I finally did my taxes that I've been putting off
Ooh,
forever.
nice.
Um, but I didn't get any money back, and in fact, I did have to pay, but I only had to pay $2. So I'm like,
Oh, nice. That's
I'll
not bad.
take it. Yeah,
I had
I'm
to
like, this
pay.
took me 15 minutes. I'll take it.
Have I told you how much I had to pay? I had to pay the government in taxes last year. It's a whole weird thing with like my
No.
Medicare and switching jobs, and I fucked. It was my fault. I fucked up somewhere along the way. I owed the government $2,000 last
Oh
year.
my God. Who has
Yeah.
$2,000?
Luckily, I did in savings, but I had to pay it to the government.
That sucks.
Anyway,
I
yeah.
think
So
I
I'm
think my
hope.
ex had a situation like that last year too, because of some corporate bullshit or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it was my fault because it was something with like the Obamacare. It's Obamacare's
Thanks,
fault.
Obama.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a whole thing. Anyway, um, yay for
Cool.
taxes.
Yeah, I guess. Yay for not having to pay $2,000 and anything like that. Like two
Yeah,
dollars I
let's
can
hope
take,
so.
whatever, it's fine.
Yeah. Well,
Anyway, well,
anyway,
anything else?
no. I would say that I'll hold myself accountable and take better notes next episode, but we both know that won't happen. But I'll try, maybe.
I believe in you.
Oh wait, let me go ahead and say my sources because um there were different ones. Gay New York by George Chauncy, obviously. Um and then also the World War I Historical Museum or whatever has a YouTube channel and they have some it's like a 9 video series, but the videos are like less than 15 minutes long. Um and it's about like different it's like immigration in World War I, women in World War I, like Native Americans in World War I, like how it changed each of those groups and like also about the World War I propaganda and everything. um so that series, and then also this article called Fighting World War I on the Streets of New York by Ross J. Wilson was this article I read. But yeah,
Work. And you can find links
work.
for all of that in the description as well. I'll include all of those.
Yeah. not trying to
Cool.
plagiarize. Not that anybody would ever think that what I just said was somebody's academic work.
Okay.
But
Well,
all right, well,
well, cool. Well, thank you all so much for listening. To those of you that have, if you have enjoyed this content, or if you want to keep up to date, well, okay, let me not say keep up to date because we've not been posting on socials, but you can
I'm
still.
sorry.
It's okay. Uh, I'm
Sorry.
responsible for it too. Um, but
Except that we said I was going to be responsible for it. Go ahead.
if you wanna go ahead and drop us a follow, I'm sure we'll start posting again one day. Um,
Yeah, maybe you would incentivize me to start posting if you followed it. I got the problem is I had that one fucking reel of Jimbo that I posted. And it went viral. Not viral, it got like 100 likes or whatever. But for
yeah.
our account with like 5 followers, all of which we know personally,
Yeah.
I was like a little overwhelmed. So then I never posted again. And that was
Well,
last summer, so my bad.
it's all good. We will get back into it. Um, but yeah, if you want to just go ahead and click that follow button to keep up with us when we do start posting again. You can find us on Instagram at Mutable Immutables. You can find us on Twitter at Immutables Pod. And you can find us on YouTube, also Mutable Immutables. And we are available on Spotify, Google, Apple Podcasts, all that. Oh, and if you've enjoyed this content, rate us 5 stars, please, and thank you.
Okay,
Okay,
bye.
until next time, goodbye.